This is a podcast or something like that.
Okay, we're starting, and we are late. 35 minutes late. Now, you don't realize that, probably. Well, definitely, actually. There's no way you realize that I'm 35 minutes late. Unless I somehow also figure out how to post this 35 minutes later than I plan to post it. Um, yeah, no, this is just 35 minutes late for the recording, right? So that wouldn't be really registered on your end. So here we are. We're live and in charge and living large and so on. Now, why am I 35 minutes late? Well, truth is, I was saving a puppy from a burning building. I hate to admit it, but that is what I was doing. So, yeah, sorry about that. No, I'll be honest. I was doing other stuff. I was talking to a friend, and we went longer than I meant to, even though I was aware we were doing it. So I'm fully culpable. Not really sorry. And we're going to do another relaxing little podcast session. We're going to hang out. This is another podcast. Welcome back to episode 2, Verbal Journal. It's interesting to do this as myself, not because I have a hard time talking to myself, but because I talk to myself all the time. So it's hard to be like, what separates normal talking to myself from podcasting? Um, But yeah, this is great. I'm really enjoying this. I had a great time last week. We had a great first episode of Verbal Journal with a guest, Elle. Had a great conversation. Elle might be back. I'm hoping she is. And we also might have some other people joining. Or we might not. I listened back to the first episode and I was like, at the beginning, I'm like, oh, people will be coming in and out. It was just like a conversation with one person and no one else tried. But this is really interesting because I wasn't at all disappointed. I'm really, this is going to be very open ended. Like even these segments where I'm talking will be open ended in terms of the proportion of this to the video or to the voice call. Like I might do longer time talking like this sometimes if I have some reason to, or less time. I just realized saying is sort of like saying ohm. That's interesting. Maybe write a poem about that. Oh yeah, I had a short story idea yesterday about a guy crossing the street, uh, just barely getting hit by cars, like on purpose, to try to sort of fuck with them. Um, but maybe that poem idea about ohms and ums is also good. um, yeah, because it is interesting, like making a lot of content and then editing my own stuff. Like it's interesting for these videos. I mean, I put a lot of work into I mean, obviously, writing the script takes like a few weeks, and then uh, recording it takes 3 to 4 hours to get like what turns into 1 hour and 10 minutes. Maybe 3 hours, but 4 hours if you include setting up and taking down. And then, I mean, this is like, I'm literally just talking about recording the audio. Editing the audio takes 6 to 7 hours probably, because you have to get all the ums and all the everythings out, and you have to hopefully have enough takes for when you had a mouth noise or something. But right now I'm not even listening to my audio, so I don't have headphones on. I know it's coming through fairly okay, but honestly, this podcast it's gonna be an experience to try to make sure all the audio is right, especially with multiple people on the Discord call. You have to adjust our audio separately. But I mentioned the only podcast I listen to. Sorry. The only podcast I listen to is the Not Even a Show podcast. I mentioned that on the first episode, the NEAS podcast. And So I'm going to take after them and make sure I talk about the audio a sufficient amount. With all that being said, um, yeah, it's going to be a really tempting bit. Much room for exploiting that bit. Okay. So right now it is Sunday, January 22nd, 2023. The Tata Steel chess tournament is going on. I believe it's round, 9 or something? Round 8 is just about to end. Magnus beat Fabiano today as black for winning his second game in a row, now coming back in the tournament. Fabi could not be happy about that. He just blundered a move where Magnus set up a checkmate in one that forced Fabiano on this whole long sort of bad streak of moves to have to cover for the checkmate. That's how chess works at the higher levels. Usually no one's blundering checkmate. You're blundering indirectly. So you blunder into a situation where now you're forced to do bad moves that you don't want to do because they're your best moves now. And that's how you lose. At my level, you just blunder. You just lose a piece or a pawn or this or that position. Okay, so 42 minutes later than I said I would start the event. Let's start the event. Start event. All right, we are in the event. So 42 minutes late. Chilling in the event space. I am in the event space. Okay, so that could be... Yeah, so I don't have anything to talk about. I just thought this would be a good space. Yeah, it's called Verbal Journal. I just want to talk about how things are going. So I mentioned that ridiculous short story idea, a guy crossing the street. I thought that would be interesting. I'm reading a book about short stories by George Saunders. The book's called A Swim in the Pond in the Rain or something. Hold on. A Swim in a Pond in the Rain. Yeah, that's a lot better. That's a lot better because the pond sort of implies I know which pond it is. Yeah. A swim in a pond in the rain. That's so much stronger. Yeah, because it's like an objective pond. That'd be a good album name or band name, Objective Pond. So this book is a book of an author I love, George Saunders, basically reading through short stories by these Russian masters from like 100 years ago. Or more, actually. I think some are from like the late 1800s even. But yeah, early 1900s, from before the revolution from the Tsar, I believe. Like Chekhov and Turgenev or something, and I could be getting these wrong. But I've never read these like Russian masters. I've never read Dostoevsky or Tolstoy. I've read Vladimir Nabokov, and I don't know. I have mixed feelings about. I mean, he's a very skilled writer, but I don't like his vibe. Bad vibes. He's misanthropic. He seems negative about people. So, but the cool thing about this is like these stories are just, they're short stories. So you're not too invested. And I'm only reading them because they're interspersed with chapters by my favorite author, literally teaching just how these stories exhibit the qualities that are helpful and good in short stories and in stories in general. So it's a masterclass. He teaches at some college, like I forget what college George Saunders teaches at. I think it's like Syracuse or something. I could be wrong about that. But he teaches English, and so this is just like a course in writing by my favorite author. So I've been reading interesting short stories. I've been reading him talking about how to write a short story and what goes into a good short story. And it's definitely been like informing me and making me think more about how I do it because I've been writing short stories now for like almost 10 years, I'd say. Actually, a lot more than that if you count like from when I started. I started writing short stories probably as like a 14-year-old, maybe 15-year-old. I took an English class in high school where we wrote short stories. Um, I wrote a few, I think, and then I wrote like poetry and stuff. I started writing poetry because I got into Shakespeare when I was like, I think a freshman, maybe a sophomore in high school. I was like, oh, Shakespeare's pretty legit. People are, they weren't kidding about Shakespeare. I kind of get it. And, I don't currently read Shakespeare very often. I can't really remember the last time I picked up a book of Shaky Spear, but, still respect, credit where credit's due. He invented the word bubble, I believe. So what was I going to say? So I'm reading this book, I'm learning about short stories, and I'm looking back at my old short stories. I'm sort of trying to compile any of them that seem to have any value at all, and sort of thinking, okay, well, what can I do to try to make these better? And it's really interesting. I have a much more critical eye, or like, I've stepped away from my writing for long enough. Like in doing so much YouTube writing and just like, doing other things with my time, music, just getting so into YouTube, I probably haven't done as much creative writing, but I've written a few short stories a year at least, like, and like they're some of them are okay, but like most of them it's like, oh no 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 no, big things need to change here. What I did do is yesterday I actually had a productive day. Well, I did 2 loads of laundry. First of all, I had the day off from, or no, yesterday was Saturday. Friday I had the day off, but yesterday I did 2 loads of laundry and just worked on short story writing in addition to like doing other chores. And I just edited like a few of my things, and 2 of them actually I think got to a point where they're definitely better. But it's still interesting the problems going on. So what's going on with one of them? So what I did to them first of all is I changed the one of them I changed them from first person to third person. Actually, both of them I changed from first person to third person. Um, and yeah, I noticed that. Like I did too much first person writing in my short stories. And I don't know. I want to read I wanted to I'm hoping like he talks in this book about first person versus third person. He fucking better. Like how do you not talk about that? But I'm definitely looking forward to hearing some theory on that because it feels like you need a really good reason to do first person. It shouldn't just be like the automatic. And I think my reason subconsciously is often to um just I guess like avoid having to name another character probably. Hold on one sec. I have to go get socks. Yeah, it sucks that I'm the only one here, so no one else can vamp. But it is what it is. I was 42 minutes late. I can't be mad when no one's here. I'm also not mad in general because I don't care. And I actually was hoping for this. I had a lot I needed to say. I want I want this podcast to be literally whatever, so I don't have any expectations. I needed to get socks, though. This feels so much better. Sometimes you just gotta put on a good pair of socks. Okay. Yeah, so I changed the person from first person to third person, so I had to come up with names for, the character. And then I changed like a lot with an eye to what he's talking about in this book, which is like, obviously every line needs to contribute to, it has to have a point. And I tend to get bogged down, especially in dialogue. I realized one of my stories that I have that even after changing things and fixing it up, it's just one conversation that happens to take place over I mean, it's like 30 minutes, I guess, or an hour, or it's like an hour and a, it's just like one big conversation. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, but like, is that a short story? I mean, that's the type of short story that can't be all your short stories. That could be like one. Oh, it's interesting. It's all one conversation. Like, what I'm saying is, I think I obviously love conversation, right? I think that goes without saying. So I end up, and this is from even the first writings I ever did as like a 14-year-old. Like I would do conversations. I remember when I went to college, this first like serious feeling, creative writing thing I did was inspired by just like an experience of like going downtown and like living it up and stuff. And it was just written in this way of like a fictional conversation with like a stranger. Like it's like, oh, this interesting conversation I had, and it was just supposed to be deep and whatever. And I've for quite a while I've looked back on it and been like, ah, yeah, no, that's not that good. But I didn't realize how pervasive that was in like the type of writing I do, where I just end up caught up in these conversations like, oh, what if someone said this and then someone said that? It's like, yeah, it can be realistic and interesting, but like you got to think bigger. I'm starting to realize I have to like think bigger and have beats to the story. Like, it doesn't have to be like formulaic, obviously, but it just has to like escalate. It has to escalate. And the conversation one I'm talking about is very interesting. It was based on a real conversation where I ran into someone a few years younger than me actually, who was like mocking me for where I was at in my life, and it was a really bizarre, weird conversation. And I think I captured the weirdness of it, and it's like really interesting because it was so weird. And reading back on it, I know that some of the things I said are quotes. Uh, No, they're not. Maybe they are. But anyways, yeah, it's just that's not you can't do that all the time. You have to have more interesting stuff to have happen. And I want to read more like short stories to get a feel for it cuz it's so different than video script writing. Like I guess that's something interesting to talk about. That's something I've been realizing is I want to work on my writing to get that creative side out for sure, because videos are art. They are art for sure, but it's a very different type of writing. It's not like fiction writing, of course. It's more like rhetoric than fiction writing. Like you're just making an argument and stuff. So I'm looking forward to probably flexing this muscle more, trying to work on my stuff more. And the other scene I worked on, that's not about a conversation. It is still a conversation actually, but it clearly lends itself more to a bigger story. And the one I was just talking about, I don't want to give it a bigger story. It was just this weird conversation I had. I don't want to turn it into like, oh, what was my character doing before and after? I don't know. That doesn't seem reasonable. But in this other one, it's a conversation where this person is telling their friend about a new job they have. So that one sort of lends itself to like the next scene is like them at the new job or like something like that. It could definitely like progress. So, and that's what I'm learning from reading this George Saunders commentary stuff is like you just ask yourself like questions about how you feel about your work and what your response to it is, and then just investigate that with the work and let it sort of inform itself in a feedback loop based on your reaction to it. It was really cool hearing him talk about his process. It was similar to mine in a lot of ways. He like prints out a copy of the work, writes on it, puts in the changes, prints it out, writes on it, puts in the changes. Like he says he does it like 3 or 4 times a day on a story or something. And it's like, yeah, that is, I mean, I guess that's obvious. I guess that's just like basic how you write, but that's very similar to me because you have to simulate getting like an outsider's perspective on your work. I love this guy's writing. To me, he's like a sort of like a modern Kafka, but a so much like I don't want to say so much better, but it's just hard to know what Kafka would have gotten into if he had lived longer. It would have been good. And if he had like gotten married, I don't think they have similar personalities though. I just mean the like writing and the way it makes me feel. It's not like they're similar people at all. That's the problem. But you know, they both have like a spirituality, so I guess there's that similarity. If you look at them both from certain specific angles, Kafka and George Saunders sort of seem similar. George Saunders' writing takes on a sort of like um, a hyper corporate, like ironic voice occasionally that sort of mimics the hyper bureaucratic voice that Kafka goes into. I feel like. I can't really. It's hard to put words on this stuff, but it's definitely real. Like, and I've heard George Saunders even talk about his writing that way. I don't know whether I've heard Kafka, but he obviously knew what he was doing with like the ridiculous. You read his writing, it's ridiculous. Like here, I could probably pull something. I got the castle right here. I could just pull up a quote. Oh my gosh, it's like really always so over the top, and you know, yeah. I mean, like even looking at the pages, he doesn't have paragraph breaks. Kafka just writes. Literally, I'm looking at it right now. Pages, literally 10 pages with no paragraph break. And the way people treat the main character is so bizarre. You just have this sense of Kafka going about his life like feeling really alienated and confused, I guess. But it's told in a very good way, and I will say Kafka definitely understood like the art of the story and the way to like escalate it. I'm not gonna read a passage. I don't know what the fuck to read, but maybe I'll do that eventually. Find something cool to read or talk about. Or maybe I'll find it now. But yeah, in general, I just want to work on the way I approach sort of short stories. I want to put more effort into it. I want to like work at it, make time for it because it is a really cool art form. But then I was thinking about it, and I'm like if you get really into writing short stories, like why would you then write a book? Like at what point do you realize, oh, an idea is worthy of a book? It's an interesting question, I think. And George Saunders has written a book. I read it. It was called Lincoln in the Bardo, and that's it was quite good. I mean, it was very interesting, and I mean, it was sort of like what's the difference between a book and a long short story? I don't. I think it's the same thing, right? A long short story is just a story, and a book is just a story, right? And so, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're profoundly similar. Um, yeah, I think I just discovered that. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna take a victory sip of water. So, but yeah, Lincoln in the Bardo is really interesting. It definitely escalated. It was really a beautiful story told from a bunch of different perspectives, but not like usually like a chapter by one person, a chapter by another person. It would be like a line by one person, a line by another, and because it was like ghosts in a graveyard. It's set like it's the story of like Abraham Lincoln when his son was sick with some disease. Like it's like this interesting historical, like surreal fictional story of like just like yeah, grief and like life and how we deal with loss and how we deal with life. George Saunders is always like very explicitly tackling existential and like philosophical moral questions in his work and giving like pretty not subtle answers in my opinion, which is what I love about it. um, I would love to talk to him one day about this. Because I don't know necessarily whether he sees it this way, but it seems to me like he tries to be extremely direct about what his message is. It's like you could almost sum it up in a thesis statement. It's like the challenge of human life is to get outside of our views of ourselves and incorporate other people's perspectives and feelings and become more sensitive to the value of, um, I don't know, contributing positively to a mutual existence with our common sentient life. I don't know. I'm just like literally making this up, but that's the message I get. And sometimes it's extremely direct. Each story in this his because I just finished reading George Saunders's recent new book about or new book of short stories. I was just talking about I was talking about Lincoln in the Bardo, his novel, and then I was talking about a swim in a pond in the rain, which is his nonfiction sort of writing teaching book. But now I'm talking about Liberation Day, which is his book of short stories, which I also just finished reading, and it's really amazing. All his short story books are incredible. I would definitely check them out. But this new one was so good. I'm gonna start rereading it like this week. I loved it. He writes in the most powerful way. It really brought me to like every emotion. I love the way we see like our own minds projected in fiction, just in a made up story. You can see situations. It made me think more about Better Call Saul too, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's just a story someone wrote on paper, and then they just happened to film and edit it, you know. But it's all the same in terms of like a story being a story. And I think we can all tell good stories, but it's interesting when you start to try like coming up with a story and you're like, oh, okay, well now, I want to I don't know, I want to make sure it's what it can be. Like how much should I try to make this good versus how much should I just um I guess let it just be? It's interesting to like really ask yourself at a bunch of different points when you're creating something. Like, what do I want this to be, and what is this? What am I making here exactly? Because you just it's so in flux. It's so open to being altered and changed. So I get it. I mean, I get a real kick out of like just being creative and some things I just need to let my mind roam with that are not going to obviously be filmed and put on YouTube, right? I mean, unfortunately, it's a different thing. Like YouTube is just like it's if I want to put something out there now, I want on the main channel, I want it to be good, and I don't, I can't just like I can't always be in that mode of thinking, I feel like. So with the channel, I'm just sort of in a waiting period. Just like my short stories, I went through my video ideas recently and I was like, "Oh, what can I work on?" But I mean, they're kind of just I mean, there's some long-term ones I could maybe work on, but just having some coffee. One sec. So, yeah, I guess what I was trying to say is it's really interesting to be in like this waiting period after, doing the whole Better Call Saul series. Because now I could just see what comes next, and it's going to be like a matter of figuring out, yeah, what do I want to have be the next thing? I don't know. I'm just gonna have to see because I really don't rely on YouTube for income, and so it's more of like an art project, the channel itself. Like I don't feel any pressure to make it perform because it's already performing way better than I could have possibly imagined, even though it's not that great, compared to like a professional YouTuber or whatever. Um, So I don't know. I mean, I have. I might. There's a chance I'll try to do something that's like a hybrid, like 50% actually still about Better Call Saul, but 50% completely something else. I did think of an idea. There's a Kurt Vonnegut story that has a character that reminded me of Saul, Jimmy. And I thought that would be interesting. What if I fucking somehow wrapped up a little trick there for people? And I do want to watch Breaking Bad. People are always like, "What's stopping you from watching Breaking Bad, you fucking piece of shit?" I'm exaggerating slightly. Um, and it's nothing in particular. I guess it's just a lot to take on. Like, am I gonna do that right now? I don't know. It's just I guess once I start episode one, I'm in. It's happening. Maybe I'll do it. I don't know. Maybe I should just do it. Maybe I should just fucking do it, you know? I just can't decide if I want my next video to be about Breaking Bad. In some ways it would make sense, but I mean, if I just make fuck. Uh I literally feel like I'm gonna have to decide. I mean, that's a decision I do have to decide. It's just a matter of when, like whether I want my next video to be about Breaking Bad. And I haven't ever really framed it that directly for myself, but now that I do, I think that's probably a good call to at least ask myself the question. I mean, do I want my next video to be about Breaking Bad? Well, the pros of that are people won't be commenting telling me to watch Breaking Bad. I mean, if I just hypothetically made a video about like another TV show, that would be going in a very specific direction. Say I watch Severance. I mean, people will flip out that I'm not watching Breaking Bad, of course. And they'll just be like, okay, good video, but watch Breaking Bad. And I don't care about the pressure or satisfying people, but I see the logic, obviously. I want to watch Breaking Bad. I'm just like, I haven't gotten around to it. So, but if I did a video about like just some random subject, like I want to do a video about professionalism and how that exists and like what that means in society and how that works in our lives. And maybe there would be maybe I should talk about, oh, that would be interesting. If I talk about like some public figure who, had their professionalism questioned or something. Um but like does should that be the next video? Like I'm not that inspired for that. And I have a few other video ideas that it's like, okay, one is like a deep dive on like an interesting company and an interesting field of work. It's like that's a pretty good candidate, but that one's not even close to being done. So that one's not even like that one is not even I can't even finish it. It's time like time has to pass for complicated reasons. Um, and probably a lot of time. So, like potentially years. So, I'm sort of coming around to the idea that it might be beneficial to consider whether starting Breaking Bad now would be a good idea. I mean, maybe it's just a good idea. It feels like so interesting to. Oh, Jordan Van Furst just beat Arjun Erigaisi in the 8th round at Tata Steel. Good for Van Forest. And the round's over. Oh no, Parham Magsudlu is losing to Gukesh. Wow, mate in 5. Okay. Well, so should I just watch Breaking Bad? Should I just put on the first episode today? Should I just throw on the first episode today? Just see what happens. What's the big problem about making my next video about Breaking Bad? What, am I afraid people are not going to let me ever not do this content? That's ridiculous. Does it really help to intersperse with some random shit? Why? Why does that help to intersperse with some random shit? What, I won't get pigeonholed? Give it a break. You know what I mean? I'm talking to myself here. You got you have 22.3 thousand subscribers, and before the Better Call Saul season 6 started, you had 1,500. You've gotten well over 20,000 subscribers out of the 22.3. You've gotten 21 out of the 22.3 from Better Call Saul, basically. Even if we round down to 20K, which is totally fair, over time, I've gotten subscribers from wherever, blah, blah, blah. The audience is from there, it's just the facts. The viewers I have like to watch videos about media, primarily. And that's not pigeonholing, that's just the facts. I don't have to conform to that, but it does make sense. It's sort of artful to take that into account, for sure. I also have nothing against watching the series, and I'm not personally inspired. It might actually be perfect right now that I'm not inspired for any other video idea, and I can even just watch, Breaking Bad, just chill out and check it out while I work on creative writing over the next few weeks. And fucking go live in like a month and surprise everybody that I've watched Breaking Bad. People will flip the fuck out. And I have a really fun stream planned for that occasion when that does come. But for now, we've been going for about 45 minutes or ish. This has been a solo pod, which might be good to sort of help establish the pod. Just throw another pod out there. It doesn't matter that it's solo. Just make sure it's out there. That's the important thing about content, is that it exists. And I think that says a lot about our society. But I do still have some gas in the tank, and I will continue gassing myself here. So this has been interesting. We've talked about writing. We've talked about video making. This is what I wanted the podcast to be. Not just me talking about myself, but I think there's a point in doing a podcast. I think people want audio stimulation, and you can create that while also processing information in a fun, effective, cool way. And this really is a verbal journal. Verbal journal. That should be the song. Oh my God, I should make a song. Verbal journal. I don't know. That sounds horrible. I came up with the name of this podcast while doing my last YouTube stream, 2.5 weeks ago or something. You can see, you can verify. That's on the side channel. There's evidence of that. So, on record, that's me coming up with a verbal journal. And I said it was a terrible name, but I loved it. So, what else? Yeah, lots of writing. Hopefully, the rest of today, I have nothing planned, so maybe I'll start watching Breaking Bad. Maybe this is the documentation of me deciding to start watching Breaking Bad. There would be something beautiful about that. If we had that recorded, this was the moment I definitively said, fine, fuck you, I'll watch Breaking Bad. It's funny, before Better Call Saul came out and I knew of it, because I don't think I knew of it until the 4th season. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, I think that's true, because I think I binged it for sure. But before that came out and Breaking Bad was out, I guess I was just a lot younger and I was a fool, I guess, or whatever. And I just, I don't think I ever watched it. I think I was always just like, oh, that looks just like a shoot 'em up or something. I mean, that's how they market it. I mean, I don't know what it is, but they market it as like a action show. Am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm out of the loop on a lot of like media. I mean, I've missed so many movies over the years. I saw a lot of movies when I was like in high school, but once I was in college and after college, I just like totally like dropped off the map of seeing movies. Nowadays, last movie I saw in theaters was Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it was amazing. It was probably the best movie I've ever seen. Um, and I don't know. I mean, I heard there was some good movies. I have a list. I want to see some movies. Okay, that's another thing I'm going to try to do. I'm going to hold myself accountable with Verbal Journal to watch one movie every week, and I'll fucking talk about it on the Verbal Journal. We just got ourselves our first bit. Now, did I steal that from the NEAS podcast and probably every podcast? Yeah. But that'll be the first bit, and it'll be to hold myself accountable. I'm not even joking. It really is a big New Year's resolution to try to watch movies more. Because I just don't watch movies a lot, and it's not for good reasons. It's not because I'm like busy being productive. It's because I'm doing something even less meaningful, like just watching chess. I mean, playing chess and like watching, some sports game I don't care about or something. So yeah, I'll hold myself accountable. I'll do a little review of a movie each week. I have a list. I'll let you know. Should I pick one now? Would that be the best way? Yep. They say make your goals SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, and time-based? I forget. I always forget. But the point is make them achievable for sure and make them specific. And so first one I'll watch. First one I'll watch. Wait, what was that one that just came out? I thought I added it. No, I don't think I can see that actually. How about... Okay, I want to watch Pig. I heard that was good. I'm going to watch Pig. That'll be the first one. I'll take a screenshot of this note so I remember. Let me do it audibly so you can hear it. Okay. Just threw out the duplicate. Okay. So we have had a really productive second episode here, even with no one showing up. I am now going to watch the movie Pig to talk about it on the next podcast next week. And I am also going to start watching Breaking Bad today. And no one's going to know because no one's going to listen to this. All right. Bye, y'all. Have a good life until the next podcast. And, well, I guess if this is a long time in the future that you're hearing this, you could probably just listen to the next podcast right now. So good luck with that. And, all right. This was fun. And, yeah. All right. Goodbye.
This is a podcast or something like that.